Rachel, it's quite dark in here. Can you raise a little the lights? It's as high as it goes.
This is as high as it goes.
It's very dark. Can't see anything. Well, I guess I'm going to have to... Oh, Jesus. I'm sorry. I forgot I had my glasses. Okay, well, that was the talk. That's meditation. You want to know what meditation is? It's that. We spend our life walking around thinking we see the world as it is. And we don't realize that we're always seeing through a filter. We're seeing through a mental model, through an interpretative filter that colors our experience. But like glasses, we don't see our filters, we see through them. And they become invisible, they become transparent. But they're not transparent, they have a color. They darken our life. We miss the brightness of the reality that surrounds us because we don't notice that we are seeing it through a dark glass darkly. One of the markers of human development is turning what used to be subject into object. And this is what that means. What used to be a part of the subject, which is a filter that I use to interpret reality, becomes an object in my awareness. And I can see, not through it, but I can see it as as separate from me. And that's the beginning of choice in life. Because now I can, if I go out and it's too bright, I can choose to put it on. But when I walk in, I can choose to take it off. But choice is a function of the separation of subject and object. I have to be able to extricate myself from the filter to be able to decide when and how to use it. Well, most of us never get there because taking your glasses, it's a lot easier than taking your eyes off. And the kind of filters that I'm talking about are more like eyes than glasses. So for example, these glasses are red. I spent a big part of my life being angry with people. And I thought that they were making me angry. So the anger was not mine, it was induced by them. And we speak like that. You're making me angry. You're making me sad. You're making me scared. Or you're making me happy. I love you. You make me so happy. My daughter once said, Daddy, I really love you as much as the TV. You know, when you're 3, that's very cute. When you're 33, that's really dangerous. I mean, you could say that to cocaine. You know, you make me really happy. But if you listen to the love songs, it's all about that. It's how the loved object makes me happy. So it was a long path for me to realize that people don't make me angry, people don't make me happy, people don't make me loving. Nothing makes me anything. But the me that I want to discover is the me that has a choice in the face of whatever happens. So it could be that anger is an appropriate response to something that happens, but it's not a response elicited by what happens. It's a choice on how to respond appropriately. And the choice is a function, as I said, of this separation. So I am not seeing the world darkly. I am seeing the world as bright as any human being can possibly see it. So if you want to debug your mental model, if you want to scrub these dark glasses that we have, how do you do it? I mean, I tried everything. I mean, some of the things I will tell you, some other things I would go to jail if I confessed. But I mean, I tried everything. And there are a lot of exciting things that seem to do the trick for a while, but nothing really lasts. I haven't found any lasting way to turn the dial from a world of victimhood where I think reality is driving me to a world of balance and openness and consciousness where I find myself in a flow. except for meditation. That was the only thing that I found could do the trick, so to speak, could help me. And I meditated for many years. As Master Charles would say, I did it the low-tech way. And it was hard. It was hard, painful. I mean, my back hurt. I mean, sitting cross-legged on the floor. I'm very inflexible. It's just hard. And it didn't fully satisfy me. I felt peaceful, but it wasn't doing the profound work I wanted. I didn't find meditation beyond relaxation and beyond a certain state of peace. It wasn't fully delivering my goals. I wasn't getting to this profound transformation of separation between me as a conscious, aware subject and objects, all the way back to the ultimate subjectivity, which is insubstantial. So, I mean, when you peel, it's like an onion. You peel. Who am I? Who am I really? Well, I'm an Argentinian. Okay, but could I have been born in another country and still be me? Well, yes, of course. I mean, in fact, I moved out of Argentina, so I could be me without being Argentinian. So Argentinian is not a feature of myself. Argentinian is just an attribute, but it's a insubstantial attribute. Okay, so I'm not Argentinian. What am I? I'm a soccer fan of a particular club. No, I could have been a soccer fan of another club. I'm a man. And then I started thinking, could I have been born a woman and still be me? And I mean, logically, yes, I could think of that. So what is the me that is left when all the filters and all these other layers are removed? I wanted to feel that. I didn't want to think about it. I wanted to experience it. And meditation wasn't quite doing it for me. And then, unbeknownst to me, I found the technology that Master Charles developed about 15 years ago. He had a different, I mean, his name was Brother Charles, so it took me a while to realize it was the same Charles. And I started using this, and it really made a huge difference. The soundtracks, and I thought, well, if nothing else, it's giving me the discipline to stay an hour, because it lasts an hour, so I'll sit for an hour and I'll meditate for an hour. But it wasn't just the discipline. Something was happening. And I've been using this technology for about 15 years. I'm sorry, I'm screwed up. So I'm not putting myself as an example. In spite of what you see in me, the technology actually works. So you can, hopefully Master Charles will speak, and then you can see what the technology can do for a real enlightened being. But it has made a tremendous difference. And all the material I teach, and many of the things I do with you in LinkedIn, are, I would say, a trap and a trick to get people to meditate. Why? How does it work? I've worked with some of you, and it's always the same. We have a conversation or in a workshop, and there's a problem. And shockingly, the business problem has a surprisingly simple solution, which is having a conversation or engaging with people openly. And once we do it, it's like, of course. It's so obvious that this is the way to solve the problem. Like, if one of your people is not performing and you have to have a hard conversation, there's so much fear in engaging. And then I ask, so if you were not afraid, what would you say to this person? And I tell you, 99% of the time, what people tell me is so beautiful and so open and so clean. They say, why don't you just say that? And we go like, yeah, I could say that. Will you say it? Yeah, I'll say it. Okay, try it. And I meet again 2 weeks later. Did you try it? No, I couldn't. What do you mean you couldn't? Well, I just didn't feel the moment was right. I said, but you said you were going to do. Well, I don't know, something just didn't click. Or I tried and it was a disaster. But did you say what we talked about? What kind of? Well, what do you mean kind of? Well, I changed it a little bit because I didn't want to be so tough. The tools are so simple that it's shocking to people that they can't use them. But here's the secret. It is not about the tool. It is always the tool user. The tool is never the problem. It's always the tool user. So the more I have learned about conscious business, or the more I've developed this methodology, the more I've convinced myself that it's trivial. I mean, everything I wrote in the book is totally trivial. I learned it from other people. There's no secret. What's almost impossible is to be the tool user capable of using the tools. And that's why at the end of the path, what you come back to is, who am I? And how can I be the kind of person that can really use this material, that can really engage with this level of honesty, integrity, truth, openness? And that you don't get from the tools, that you get through personal development. And that's why I feel incredibly excited about introducing Master Charles and having him speak about himself and his path. He's really amazing man, and the technology he's developed, and hopefully you will get some of that energy, and we'll also do a practice. And my dream, I'll confess it after this, is that some of you will be interested, and we can start a meditation group at LinkedIn, and host it, just meet regularly and just meditate and talk about what we're learning and so on. It'd be one of my big dreams about coming to LinkedIn, to help people work on themselves at this level of depth. So without further ado, I'll introduce Master Charles. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred, for that very beautiful introduction. And I want to take this opportunity to welcome each and every one of you in the awareness of our oneness. You, me, all and everything is the same blissful consciousness. There is only one. And it is in this holistic awareness, in this very moment, that you are welcomed. Now, what did I just say? What does that mean? Let's see if we can make it really simple. We all share life. It empowers us equally. And life is conscious energy. And the conscious energy that is life is often termed consciousness. And there is only one consciousness, just as there is only one life. So again, in life, in consciousness, we are all one and equal. And the conscious energy that is consciousness, if we really look into it, if we use a high-powered enough microscope and focus it on our own hand and see to the subatomic level of our experience, the conscious energy is a self-delighting energy. The very essence of what we are as life forms, the essence of all and everything, if you have the eyes to see it, is but a self-delighting, joyous energy. And thus it is often given the term bliss. It is a blissful energy. Life, in essence, is blissful consciousness. So you, me, all, and everything are one in the blissful consciousness of life that is our essence. And it's in this holistic awareness that you are welcomed in this moment. First and foremost, let's endeavor to be as wakeful as we could possibly be in this very moment. Wakefulness is proportional to balance in the relative field that governs all experience. And one of the easiest gateways to balance, so that we might be wakeful of the blissful consciousness that is our essence, is our very breath. Breath is life. Life is consciousness. Breath and life are only ever experienced in the here and now of their happening. You don't breathe yesterday, you don't live tomorrow. We live and breathe. We are consciousness here and now. And if we can just open our awareness and observe ourselves breathing, we're more present, we're more wakeful, we're more balanced in the here and now of true reality as one blissful consciousness. So this is your responsibility in this presentation, to maintain the observation of your breathing as we continue. Simple. Very good. Our subject for today is modern spirituality in the digital age, harnessing technology for the evolution of consciousness. And I'd like to preface it with a quotation from Socrates. Socrates was a very wise man because he knew that knowledge was bondage. Socrates was a master of the primary computer, the brain-mind computer. He was able to create what I call the clear mind experience, a mind not identified with its content. We could say Socrates was a believer in not believing. He was able to live in a state of witnessing consciousness wherein he could be a master of his own brain-mind computer. And this is important because if you don't master the primary computer, your own brain-mind, you have no mastery of other technologies that you encounter in life. But just as you know from working with technology and working with the computer on your desk, if you don't understand it, and if you don't master it, it can cause you a lot of misery and suffering. And so it is with this primary computer, the brain-mind computer. If we don't understand it, if we don't know the mechanics of how it works and all of its systems, then it can cause us a lot of misery and suffering. So primarily, as human beings, we need to focus on ourselves. We need to bring to mastery the human brain-mind computer, because through it we can either deliver ourselves to balance, wholeness, and fulfillment in our life experience, or we can bring ourselves to fragmentation, conflict, and resultant suffering. And the choice is always ours. So again, Socrates was a very wise man in terms of his mastery of the brain-mind computer. And his quote is, "Beware the barrenness of a busy life." Interesting quote, no? Beware the barrenness of a busy life. We live in the digital age, the information age. The speed of information processing is fast and furious. Just to keep pace every day, you have to stay plugged in 24/7. And if you have not mastered your primary computer, the brain-mind computer, and you stay plugged in 24/7, you can very easily become fragmented, imbalanced, and stressed to the point of burnout. And all corporate coaches and corporate executives, as well as the medical community and related pundits, recognize this. It is a challenge in the digital age, burnout. And so what do they recommend as a remedy? They tell us that we must periodically unplug in order to restore our balance and maintain our wholeness and our fulfilling experience of life. And that's all well and good. However, the construct that they offer us is a construct of meditation that is thousands and thousands of years old, and therefore doesn't really suit us because it is not relevant to the times in which we live. So I question whether such recommendations of ancient contexts of meditation are really beneficial to our experience, because what happens when you use them? If you employ a classical construct of meditation, the first thing you have to understand is it takes a lot of time to actualize measurable results. And I'm talking about hours a day, every day, for the rest of your life. Consider the times in which it emerged. Go back 8,000 to 10,000 years in human experience. People had a lot more time available to them than we have today. They had time to sit in caves, cross-legged, for hours a day meditating, and experienced actionable results. My question for you today, or for anyone, is how many people do you know who own a cave? And if they do own a cave, do they have the time to spend several hours in it, day after day after day, to actualize beneficial result? And of course the answer is no. And this is what happens when pundits today recommend these forms of meditation to a world that doesn't have the one necessary requirement, which is time. We are time challenged. So you will try it, you won't put in the requisite time because you're not really informed about how much time it takes. It doesn't work that well, and eventually what do? You drop the practice, or you don't do it enough to get really measurable results. So the question really is it necessary to unplug in a classical construct of meditation or meditation-related focusing techniques like mindfulness or wakefulness in the times in which we live? And my answer to that is no. Don't unplug. Now that seemingly puts me at odds with most corporate and medical pundits. But based on my experience, I'm saying don't unplug, rather stay plugged in, but learn to harness technology to create the balance that supports wakefulness and wholeness and fulfillment in your experience while you are engaged with technology. We must make the meditative construct of balance, wholeness, and fulfillment relevant to the times in which we are living. So let's talk a little bit about this. Technology in relation to meditative construct, or the principles of balance, wholeness, and fulfillment, and how we as human forms, biology, can interact more efficiently and precisely with technology. And let's begin with a look at biology and technology as forms of consciousness. We don't often think in these ways. We don't often go back to the essence, the source that we all share, again, which is that fundamental consciousness. Consciousness is orchestrating the show. Well, consciousness creates the life form called human being. It also creates the form or the instrument called technology. And why does it create all these instruments? It creates all these instruments so that it can fulfill its primary intention, which is to ever more fully be itself, which it's been doing now for almost 15 billion years since the Big Bang. All forms, all instruments are instruments of consciousness through which it experiences itself, processes the information of the experience, and grows resultant developmental self-awareness. And the measure of evolution then in individuated consciousness is self-awareness. Why are human beings regarded as the superior species on this planet? Because we exhibit the most self-awareness. But there's a challenge on the horizon. And what is the challenge? The challenge is technology. Is technology surpassing biology in terms of self-awareness? Is the computer or the smartphone in your pocket going to outpace you in developmental evolutionary self-awareness? And the projection, conservatively speaking, is within 50 years, AI becomes self-aware and actualizes singularity. Singularity, I'm using that term in an understanding of it more archetypally as total holistic self-awareness, the awareness, the full awareness of consciousness in all of its forms as itself in the eternal now of its happening. So is, again, technology going to outpace biology? And if it is, and it seems to be moving in that direction, then we as human beings need all the help we can get. We are biology. And if we don't keep pace with technology, if we don't befriend technology, if we don't merge with technology to create human 2.0, self-aware, truthful experience of reality in the context of singularity, then we, like the dinosaurs, will be made redundant. So again, we must do as all great masters have invited us to do for thousands of years. We must invest in self-awareness. So again, how do we do that in a way that is relevant to the times in which we live? Do we use 10,000-year-old constructs of meditation that take a lot of time that we don't have to produce measurable results in terms of developmental self-awareness? Or do we befriend technology and harness it to the evolution of our consciousness and the actualization of evolutionary self-awareness? That's the challenge today. Let's look now at meditative construct for a moment and see if we can understand the old and then in relation to the new, where we've been and where we're going. And after I explain it and we can understand it, then what I'd like to do is move into the technological aspects of it, and we'll share an experience of it. So you can experience the application of technology that I'm talking about. Meditative construct is really easy to understand in a classical context. The classical context of meditation posits a relative reality. It says we live in a relative reality with its two polarities, and all experience is relative. And meditative construct uses the two polarities, as Fred mentioned, of subjective and objective. And it says that the two polarities must be balanced if we are to experience holistic self-awareness, or the experience of the oneness of all and everything as blissful consciousness, a truthful perception of reality. But it also informs us that the objective polarity is the default dominant in relative reality, which means by default we are imbalanced to the objective polarity. We're imbalanced to the world that surrounds us of forms of life, of forms of consciousness. And in order to create balance, we have to emphasize the non-dominant polarity, the subjective. And so what do you do when you meditate? You close your eyes. You focus subjectively. The balance is created proportional to the balance you sustain. Your holistic self-awareness expands, and you have a more truthful experience of reality as blissful, peaceful, joyous energy, joyous consciousness. So that's the classical meditative construct. And then we could look at that and say, okay, how do we bring in technology and science in a more relevant modern understanding of the same context? So let's first look scientifically. And let's say, okay, how about we look at the primary brain-mind computer in terms of this classical context of relative reality, balance, imbalance. Well, modern science, Nobel Prize winning work all the way back to Prigogine and others has greatly informed us on this matter. It tells us that the same relative reality, the same relative construct can be seen in our own brain. It has two hemispheres, left brain, right brain. Left brain is the objective polarity, right brain is the subjective polarity. The default dominant polarity in relative reality is the objective. Have you heard the term left brain dominant? Human beings are left brain dominant. We are more focused consistently outside of ourselves than we are inside of ourselves. And this is called brain lateralization. And because we maintain brain lateralization, by default, we are very fragmented in our experience, and our perception of reality is very fragmented. Science will tell you we don't perceive true reality. We perceive a limited version of true reality. It's sort of like using 10% of your brain compared to 100% of your brain. It's a very limited experience of life. When we can bring the two polarities of the brain, right brain and left brain, into balance, what happens? The whole brain lights up. It's called whole brain synchrony. We go from brain lateralization through the principle of balance to whole brain synchronization. Not only does the brain light up like a Christmas tree, but our perception of reality radically shifts. And what do we perceive? We can then perceive the essence, the oneness of life as a joyous energy. What we thought was solid, what we thought we were separate and different from, is now all moving and fluxing and dancing, particles of light. Everything is one blissful consciousness, but only when we can maintain whole brain synchrony can we enjoy whole brain function and whole brain experience. Can we become superhuman in that context? But another interesting thing happens when you maintain balance and the brain lights up in whole brain synchrony. It actualizes the pineal gland and brings it into greater actualization. Pineal gland is a master gland of the endocrine system and is responsible for our most powerful neurochemicals. DMT, endorphins, light up the pineal, through balance in your brain and whole brain synchrony, you want to talk about euphoria, you want to talk about pleasure, you want to talk about the drug experience that is innate to your own brain. It's as available to you as the balance you sustain moment by moment by moment. No wonder the ancient masters and yogis used to say, it's a blissful experience. You stay in the cave all those hours balancing through meditative construct, light up your pineal gland, and you'll be as blissful as they are. And I can assure you, I have met many such masters. My journeys took me to the East. They took me all over this planet, and I studied with many of them. And I sat with them for 5 minutes, and their state of being was infectious. Just being in their presence and trained me into the same balance in my own brain and the same production of more neurochemical opiate. And before I knew it, the rocks underneath my feet were loving me, and everything was blissful, and I couldn't stop smiling, and I couldn't stop laughing, and I said, I got to know what this is. I got to understand the mechanics. I got to figure this out. And so I glued myself to the feet of one of these masters and spent 12 years as a disciple. And that took me to an exploration of the experience, the mechanics of it, which is mostly what I'm sharing with you here and now. It took me back to the cave experience. I studied the yogis in the caves in the Himalayas. I wanted to know not only what experience they had, but what the environment of the cave did that was conducive to them having that experience. And I studied all of the parameters, went back to the oldest of the philosophical systems upon which their practice was based, and learned that it was all about balance, you know. The Buddha used to teach the golden balance. If you learn nothing else, he said, learn the principle of balance. If you can maintain it, your wholeness is proportional to it. And that's the experience, really, that we're talking about. So how can we then harness technology to support us in the times in which we're living to sustain this balance? That's what's really important. Now let's look at technology then in relation to balance. Balancing technologies are like whole brain or brain wave entrainment technologies, and they've been well researched for the last 100 years or so. And if you know what you're doing with such bicameral, binaural entrainment sonic technologies, you can entrain the two sides of your brain into a brainwave profile that corresponds to meditative construct. It's simply knowing the meditative EEG and what that looks like, composed of beta, alpha, theta, and delta. The awakened mind profile was mapped many, many years ago in research. We know what it is, and we now have the technologies to be able to deliver that experience with great precision and efficiency. Sort of the difference between riding in a horse and buggy or a modern automobile. Both will get you where you're going, but one will get you there more efficiently and faster. And so it is with technology. It delivers more precision and more efficiency to our experience. But you have to be careful with entrainment technologies. You really have to know what you're doing. And if you stay on the cutting edge of them and you become masterful in their application, then you can use such technologies based on the meditative construct and you can encode them into musical soundtracks or white noise soundtracks, and you can play them with headphones or without in a meditative context and deliver a precision meditative experience of balance, wholeness and fulfillment every time you use them. And they show us in research that they will deliver a 4-fold acceleration factor over low-tech means of meditation. Ta-da! Meditation is now relevant to the times in which we live. Harness technology to support the evolution of your consciousness. And do you only have to use it sitting cross-legged for an hour a day or 15 minutes a day or whatever you can manage? The answer is no. Technology has now evolved to the point that it can be used 24/7. I started the use of technology 35 years ago. I created the first applications of it, and I was the primary guinea pig. I used it on myself, and I think that's my only claim to fame, is that I've consistently used it on myself for 35 years. And the result is the consistency of my own balance, my own wholeness, my own fulfillment, and a more truthful experience of reality. But I started in the days of analog, and I've stayed on the cutting edge of it now into the digital age. We started with cassette tapes, and when it was first marketed under the name Synchronicity High-Tech Meditation, the advertising slogan was, "To meditate, push play." Simple, really simple. Well, we've come through cassette tapes and CDs to MP3s to apps, to everything that is the cutting edge of such technology. And now it's as simple as having it on your iPod or your smartphone in your pocket, and you don't even need headphones anymore. You don't even need to hear it. It can just be on play in your pocket, and it will sustain your balance 24/7 in the midst of whatever you are doing. And this is the real meditation. This is what the masters will tell you. They say, yeah, we have to sit all those hours for many years to develop the constancy of the experience. But once it becomes constant, meditation goes for an hour or two a day to the 24-hour-a-day meditation. And that state of constancy is what they termed enlightenment. And now in our times, enlightenment has never been so easy. It's as available to us as the smartphone in our pocket. So we can talk about technology here forever and ever. We can talk about the philosophy of it, the meditative construct, everything that so far we have been sharing, or we could experience it. And that's what I'd like to invite you to do with me now, is just to have an experience of this technological form of meditation. And here's the good news. You're already experiencing it. Because while I have been speaking, the technology has been playing. And if I pause for just a moment, you can hear this sort of ocean in the background, white noise. And I've been playing a very light technology called alpha level technology. It's the beginning of synchrony in the brain. When you first begin to relax and de-stress a little bit, and a little bit of awareness helps your focus. And so you might notice the difference from when you first came in and sat down, and you might be a little more relaxed. You might be a little more endorphin. You might think you're a little sleepy, or maybe I'm a little boring and you're tuning out. It's just the technology and the effect that it's having on your brain of drawing it more into the alpha range, the beginnings of the balance that allows the awareness to expand and the neurochemical opiation to increase. So this is just, let's call this very light meditation, okay? I'd like to take us now into a deeper application of it, where we'll move it down into the theta and upper delta level. Sort of like sleep. I'm going to put you to sleep. Meditation's very much like sleep in terms of an EEG, except it has another component to it that allows you to stay awake while you're deeply asleep according to the EEG measurement of your brain. So we're going to bring you down into that lower level that corresponds to the rejuvenation and the pleasure of sleep time experience, but in a pure meditative EEG, so that you'll be able to stay awake. For example, sleep is about the most pleasurable experience that we have as human beings. Just think about it every day when you have to get up, or you wake up in the night and it's, so pleasurable. Radical endorphination, radical opiation, DMT secreting every hormone it's got, dreams, DMT, whoa, and you have to come out of that and wake up and let that go. Oh no. Meditation's the same, but you're awake. Can you go to that level of pleasure 24/7? Can you live high on life with no synthetic drugs, your own drugs? Yes, that's the potential of this technology. So this is what we're going to explore in a short little demonstration of it. So if you're willing, I'd like to proceed to that now. Maybe we'll do 10 minutes or so. Is that okay? Now, your only responsibility in this meditation is the same responsibility I gave you at the beginning, which is to observe your breathing, which, of course, you've all been doing as I've been speaking. Just observing that you're breathing right here, right now, alive, breathing. Breath is life, life is consciousness, breath, life, consciousness, only ever experienced in the now of their happening. We're here and it is now. So I want you to just observe your breathing while I play some really nice music and change the technology a little bit. And maybe we could lower the lights, if that's possible, so nobody will see us meditating. Oh, very good. And we'll just sit comfortably, listen to the music, and watch ourselves breathe for a few minutes, okay? Whenever you're ready, Maestro. bring our meditation to its completion, I want you to just observe your experience. Just observe how you feel, what your experience of life, of reality, of yourself is in this moment. Nothing right, nothing wrong, nothing to do or not do, rather just to be. As Socrates would say, no definitions are necessary. As the Buddha would say, just be, it's the greatest miracle. The brilliance of the consciousness that we are is that it can turn its awareness back upon itself and be aware of itself being. Just observe yourself being and be grateful for the life that empowers you, that you might be more clearly perceiving in this very moment. And as we transition out of the meditation now, I'll just have a couple of concluding remarks. I want you to stay with your experience and keep breathing, being, watching and listening. The experience speaks for itself. This is modern spirituality in the digital age. Spirituality is consciousness in the singularity of its happening, aware of itself being as all and everything, and harnessing technology for the evolution of consciousness speaks for itself. So I'm here again to encourage you not to unplug, but to continue using technology unto the greater evolution of the consciousness of the humanity of this planet. I've been called the high-tech guru and the electronic mystic and a host of other names that you wouldn't imagine, and interviewed by the media all over this world. But one thing they said of me I like, and it's this: he'll never win a Grammy, but he's gone platinum with meditation. And that's very fulfilling to me, for I've been able to assist hundreds of thousands of people to find their way to meditation in a context relevant to the times in which we live, and to be more masterful in their experience of being human. And so I'm happy to have shared the same experience with you. To make it simple, I'm not here to sell you anything. It's free. It's as simple as finding the app and downloading it. And so I had them make these cards, which you can have, that tell you exactly how to get it for free. The most important thing is try it. If it resonates with you today, use it based on your experience. As simple as putting it in your pocket, playing it 24/7. The app I'm recommending is called Now the Technology. Indeed, enlightenment has never been so easy. So I'm happy to have shared with you today. It has been my honor to be with you. And as requested, if you have any questions, I'm happy to address them now.
Thank you so much. I have a question that came in from the stream. Let's see here. How will the experience of enlightenment via technology inform the ethics that are so connected to the descriptions of enlightenment, the discipline, compassion, empathy, and selflessness?
Say that again.
Okay. How will the experience of enlightenment via technology inform the ethics that are so connected to the descriptions of enlightenment, the discipline, compassion, empathy, selflessness?
The experience of enlightenment via technology is the same as the experience of enlightenment without technology. It's just what is relevant to the times in which we live. It is the balanced, unified state of being, the whole brain and its function, that births the ethics of compassion and kindness and gratitude and love within our humanity. So it's not so important how you get there. What's important is getting there, actualizing it in yourself. And once actualized and made constant, all those values that you are speaking of emerge naturally as the expression of a balanced and unified consciousness. Okay?
Thanks. If anyone else has any questions, if you could come to the mic, that'd be great so people on the stream could hear. Fred, do you have a question?
Well,
you're...
Master Charles, if you would speak about your experience with compassion and forgiving the unforgivable, because I think that's very powerful.
Fred is referencing an experience I had in 2008 called the Mumbai terrorist attack. I was in India at the time with 25 of my students from around the world staying in the Oberoi Hotel. When the terrorist attack happened, we were held captive for 48 hours. 2 of our members were killed and 4 were seriously wounded. And thereafter, when we were rescued and returned to our country, the international media, of course, swarmed us. And in those interviews, we offered forgiveness and compassion toward the terrorists. And it was very simple. I said, everyone in life offers you an experience you could have, but you are at choice. Who do you choose to be? I honor the experience of the terrorist. I do not understand it, but his experience is as valid as mine. But what's important is, who do I choose to be in relation to the experience he has offered me? I could choose hatred, negativity, revenge, and fill myself with it, and then I would become his disciple. Or I could say, no, that experience is appropriate for you in ways I can't understand, but I'm going to choose love. I'm going to fill myself with compassion and kindness and gratitude, and that'll be my contribution to myself and our world. So that message went out all over the world. Thousands and thousands of responses came back from people saying, you have inspired us. Who are you? How did you get to be the way you are? And that inspired the book that I wrote, Forgiving the Unforgivable. I wasn't going to write the book, and I have to give credit to Eckhart Tolle, who is a dear friend, and at the time said, you have to write this book. And I said, I don't want to write another book, Eckhart. He said, you have to write this book. I'll write the introduction. I said, you got me. So I wrote the book, and it is, again, in response to all those thousands of people who wanted to know how to live truthfully in balance and be able to live compassionately and life affirmatively in our world today. Okay? Hi.
Hi. Thank you for coming here today and sharing with us.
Thank you.
I'm very intrigued by the idea that we are chemically predisposed to experience joy when our brain is in balance. And I was wondering, how does that mean that pain, both physical and emotional pain, is in balance, or how does that fit in?
Good question. We all experience pain. Pain is intrinsic to having a human body. But in many of the wisdom traditions, they address it saying there's pain and then there's embellished pain. The pain in and of itself isn't that much, but it's your interpretation of it, what you bring to it that embellishes it and makes it far worse than it is. So if you understand the techniques of wakefulness or mindfulness, they can demonstrate that you can detach from it in a wakeful, witnessing consciousness experience and have a very minimal experience of pain, or transform it into absolutely the elimination of it. And also, it goes right to what I was saying in terms of the meditative construct of balance in the brain, and then when the whole brain lights up and floods you with the most powerful neurochemical opiates that we know of, you have the pain medication right within you. And if you follow the wakeful, mindful progression into a meditative construct, you have the medicine within you. And if you know how to use it, pain becomes an experience of the past. I remember when I was with my teacher and I had to go to India and meditate in the classical way, and they sat on marble floors, cross-legged, with no cushions, nothing. Well, I sat like that. My legs were killing me. The pain in my knees, that's all I could think of. Every time I sat to meditate was the pain in my knees. So there was a question and answer session with the master one day, and I posed the question. I said, the pain in my knees, whoa. And he said, when you understand what pain is, it leaves you. Well, that became a koan for the next 10 years of intensity of meditative process on the marble floor, but ultimately it results in what we're talking about here today. Pain is just another form, another expression of consciousness. If you can include it into the consciousness that it really is, and you cease being separate from it and fighting it and creating conflict and stress in relation to it, you greatly dissipate, minimize the experience, and maximize the blissful consciousness, the joyous energy of life that is the truth of who you are. Okay?
Any other questions? Oh, good, great.
When people are listening to the melodious music, do you encourage people to use their imagination and like sort of roaming through the imaginary land? You know, when I was listening to the music, my mind was like, I was walking through a bamboo forest in China, and the ladies from the 13th century were playing the 10-string lyre and the harp and the music. And then I walked through the hotel, not hotel, but like, you know, a little mini place to the ocean. And you said like, what's the right practice to use our mind when listening to the music?
Don't change a thing.
Okay, thank you.
The experience that you're describing is one of many ways that you can augment or support your high-tech meditation experience. And they are all focusing techniques, focused awareness techniques, like watching the breath or visualization, creative visualization such as you are describing. And I always say, explore them and find what works best for you. What is important is that you just use the technology for a certain period of time to deliver precisely that meditative EEG and meditative experience. And while it's happening, enjoy yourself. If that's creative visualization, if it's watching your breath, whatever the technique, doesn't really matter. Make it an enjoyable experience and allow yourself to be exactly the way you are while it's happening. Whatever happens, endeavor to just be a witnessing consciousness watching what's happening, because in truth, that's what we are. We're just a witnessing consciousness watching what's happening in the here and now of life happening. So any technique is an appropriate technique insofar as it works for you to sustain your balance or add to your balance and wakeful experience. Okay?
Hi. Thank you for coming. This was really interesting. I'm a regular meditator, and I actually reside at a Zen center.
I can see that you're a regular meditator.
I have a kind of a two-part question. The first one is, would you mind if I ask the people here a quick way to show how their experience was? Is it okay if I say, like, can I ask, since we are here, can I ask the audience some way to show their experience? Would you mind if I ask the people to do that here? Okay, so if you guys look at me, this would be that experience just blew your mind. This would be, it was not your worth your time. So would you mind if you just quickly show on a dial essentially how it was for you? Okay. All right, I think that's interesting for everybody to see. So I did very much enjoy my experience as well. So the question is, why not then pipe this technology into places like Grand Central Station and, work with,
I'm with you.
civic places? Are you in conversation with corporations, government offices?
No, not yet. Hopefully coming, but that's what I would say. It's interesting to me that in the research of these technologies over the last 100 years, how they were first researched was by our government for purposes of warfare and defense. We always go to the default objective, the default negative approach. And now we come back to the life affirmative and love-based approach, the compassionate approach. And to me, that's where we are now with the potential of such technologies. And as you see, they can greatly transform the individual, and transformation in the individual is simultaneous in the collective. If we want to transform our world, we begin with ourselves. So it does hold great potential, and let's see what unfolds.
So Fred, since you're here, what if we pipe this into meeting rooms at LinkedIn? It would be an interesting experiment.
Yeah, well, I think definitely we should. I'd like to try it. I mean, I will try it. I'll bring my own little speaker. We need to pipe it in. We can do it in a decentralized form. So, I mean, I have it and I use it all the time. So we might try some meetings with the alpha white noise behind.
Yeah, just brainstorming.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to share and ask a question too. I had recently a special chance to have an EEG done while I was meditating, and I had never done that before. And it was not really a quiet meditation, but I got into a state very similar to ones I've experienced with shamanic substances like ayahuasca or mushrooms. And something that then I learned from the person that was doing the EEG, who is here also, Tiff, is a psychologist and neurologist, that there's another type of waves that I never heard about before, which are gamma waves, which are like ultra fast, but I mean, they're very strange. So I was hoping you could say something about the gamma waves and meditation, because you mentioned the beta, alpha,
yes,
theta, and delta, but these other ones, at least they blew me away. I had no idea that they existed. I'd never heard of them before, and I thought it was really interesting how they emerge from the balance. So
in order to understand gamma waves, you have to understand what's termed multidimensional consciousness. Consciousness in its universal construct is multidimensional from subtle to dense. And the same is true in the microcosm of individuated consciousness, the human form. We are a multidimensional consciousness. This is often referenced in terms of vortices, or in the classical traditions, the chakras, to denote dimensionality within our consciousness. So we have the denser dimensions, and let's simplify them and call them physical, emotional, and mental. And then we have the subtler dimensions, and let's call them subtle, causal, and supracausal. For the most part, we remain mired in our denser dimensions, physical, emotional, and mental. In that sense of vertical relative reality, we are still objectively dominant. The dense would correspond to the objective. And we're not balanced. But when we start balancing through meditation, we balance the dense and the subtle, or the physical, emotional, and mental, with the subtle, causal, and supracausal. When they come into balance, it's sort of like harmonics. And not to get too technological, but synchronicity technology, the technology that I can create, is configured in what's called phi ratio. And phi ratio is harmonic, 0.618, 1.618, 2.618, 3 etc. When you balance and you light up all of those dimensions, that's when harmonically gamma waves emerge, or when you notice them and they can be measured. They are really the harmonic of balance and the actualization of our multidimensional consciousness. So meditators, long-term meditators, people who sustain that level of balance will have high amplitude gamma waves. Those who don't, who remain very imbalanced and fragmented and dense in their consciousness, very hard to measure, or you don't see them so predominantly. And that's why, for the most part, they're new in our exploration and our observation. But again, experienced meditators would demonstrate them, and it really just means you're multidimensional actualized, your whole brain is lighting up in function, and you're experiencing that subtle harmonic. Now, the interesting thing about the subtle dimensions is that that's where the greatest amplitude of our power is. It gets limited in the denser dimensions. So if we live constantly in the physical, emotional, and mental levels and don't actualize, we have very limited power, very little amplitude of power. But light up those subtle dimensions, the amplitude of your power increases, and that's the presence of the enlightening master, the classical enlightened master. You come, you sit in their presence, you feel the amplitude of their power because they're multidimensionally actualized. So that's where gamma waves come in relation to beta, alpha, theta, and delta. Okay?
Hey, I have a couple of questions. So the first one is, so first of all, thanks for the wonderful experience. So while I was listening to the music, I felt great, but as soon as I started focusing on my breathing, it sort of got disturbed. The breathing got disturbed, and I started breathing more rapidly, and then the joy component sort of reduced a little bit. So is there some problem with the way I was applying the technique, or one gets used to it, or?
One gets used to it, and one explores different techniques. You could just listen to the music, or find music that you like to combine with it, or have no music. I prefer just the white noise sound of the ocean.
Okay.
And that's just perfect for me. That's all, and I have to barely even hear it. It's just kind of like a focusing background. Breath works very easily for me because I've practiced it for so many years, and I kind of multitask wakefulness so that I'm constantly aware of my breathing, and it just keeps me really present in the midst of whatever is happening. But if that technique doesn't work for you, find another one that works. They're all just focusing techniques. They focus your awareness into the here and now so that you can simply be wakeful and present. And whatever technique of the many that are available that works for you, you have to explore. And once you find the one that works for you, then stay with it. But your experience is absolutely appropriate. It's through the exploration and the experience of it that you will find out what works best for you and then maximize the experience.
Thanks.
Okay?
Thank you. The second question is, when you start meditating for some time every day, outside of that time window, what difference do you start noticing in your day-to-day life?
What you start noticing is, well, there are many medical side effects, benefits that we know of. The stress factor goes way down, the endorphination comes up. You have a more fulfilling, a more, I like to say, happy for no reason. There's just that joyousness of life, the joy of consciousness, blissful. If I'm not blissful, if I'm not intoxicated all the time, if I'm not high on life, I start questioning myself and say, what's wrong? What are you doing here? That's the baseline for me after many, many years of experience. But also, I think the most important is wakefulness. And wakefulness is it's the older term that preceded the Buddhist mindfulness. And it's just, can you be present? Can you be fully alive in the now of your life experience? Can you be here now? Because now is the gateway to true reality. We're never alive tomorrow. We're not alive yesterday. We're only experiencing life now. But how much of now do you experience? If you are fully present in the now, you experience the joyousness of life as blissful consciousness. You live the high of life joyfully lived, and it's an amazingly fulfilling experience. And that's why it is called balance, wholeness, and proportional fulfillment. The truthful experience of life as one blissful consciousness. And that will develop more and more and more and spread it through the waking hours of your day. Okay?
Great. Thank you so much. We're actually at time, unfortunately. I feel like we could sit and talk with you all day.
Very good.
Fred, did you want to say anything at the end?
No, I just want to thank you very much for coming and sharing with us. And what better place than LinkedIn to do high-tech meditation?
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that our conversation today can start a good wave beyond our brains and extend it to the world and dedicate this to the happiness and fulfillment of all the people that we touch. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.